It's been a while since I've had an opportunity to do an on-the-road EV rider, so I'm really looking forward to this episode. I'm going to be doing about 110 miles from here in Jacksonville down to Edgewater, Florida, where I'm going to meet up with Rick Flashman. Of course, he and his wife Sabrina have a pair of Energica Experias. I got to tell you, I'm excited to check those out. My first charging stop was in St. Augustine, where I did my first on-the-road charge since getting Zero's 10% charging speed firmware upgrade. So when I first plugged it in, it was varying between 6.6 and 6.5, and now it seems to drop down to 6.5, 6.4, although as you can see, it's holding pretty steady at 6.5. But I started with 55%, so it's picked up, more than 1% a minute since I started charging, which is good. It is a noticeable difference. Previously, I would peak at between 5.8 and 5.9 before the firmware upgrade. I try to get in about 15,000 steps a day, so a walk to Flagler College and back helped get the kinks out. Next, I pulled into Daytona Beach, where I charged for about a half hour on a brand new Volta, one of about a half dozen recently installed at Tanger outlets. A cool side note, the outdoor shopping mall is installing solar canopies, so some of the charging will be powered by sunshine. From there, it was about a half-hour hop to Rick Flashman's house in Edgewater, where the first two Energica Experias in Florida were waiting for me. Rick and his wife Sabrina recently picked up their Experias in San Francisco and rode them cross-country back home to Florida. So, they've already got thousands of miles of experience with the EV touring bikes.
Well, the biggest difference is that it's designed for touring. So because of that, everything is focused on how to try to get the most range out of it. It's aerodynamic. They did do wind tunnel testing on it. The motor is a little held back so that you're not, wearing out the battery doing tons of rapid launches. And the comfort, they got a much more comfortable seat and riding position. So the whole thing's set up, larger windshield that's adjustable, plus obviously the option for the extra storage. So it's just designed, purpose in mind. I compare it more to the Ego that way, because the Ego is very designed, purpose in mind, to be a track bike. This is designed very much to be a mile eater. This is the Rebel, and it's a street fighter design. So, you're not as down as a sports bike. You're not as upright. You're in that three-quarter position of a street fighter, a little more packed in. So it's very much purpose designed for that. And I mean, this bike has been great. We've gotten, I think my longest ride on this was 157 miles, but we normally get 140 no problem on him. So we're able to go quite a distance back roads. The Experia, is a lot more upright. So I'll sit here on mine. So it's a more comfortable, relaxed. Your leg is not as packed in. You're more relaxed, and you're sitting upright the whole ride. The windshield's a little taller, so it's a lot more relaxed riding position. So the Experia has the largest production battery of any electric motorcycle. So it has a 22.5 kilowatt hour battery. Usable is 19.6 kilowatt hours. And it has DC fast charging, which is located right under here. So you're able to DC, just washed it, so a little wet. DC fast charge it. And it's off the side there. And there's the regular AC charging. And that allows it to charge in about an hour. I think it's 40 minutes, the famous up to 80% faster part of the charge. Top speed charging, we've seen it peak at 26 kilowatts while charging. That was once. But normally it'll peak around 25, 24, depending on the charger. And it will hold that, if conditions are right through to almost 90%. Obviously, you start doing repetitive charges, it's a really hot day, or other variables kick in, then it will adjust accordingly.
Now, the last charge of the day when you were road tripping, what would you say your peak was on the last charge of the day?
There was one day that we did 3 charges in a day, and we were doing all highway. And so when we got to the second charge, we were peaking around 21, but it would slow down to about 18 for about half of that. So we got like 21 halfway and then 18. Then the third charge of the day, I think the peak was about 18.
And what were the temperatures that day?
Yeah, they were in their 60s, 70s. It was cooler days. So we obviously, it's not summer yet. We haven't sort of tried out in the summer. The philosophy in the Energica is a little different. Rather than setting an artificial limit that works in all temperatures, which would be a lower limit like 16, they simply have the computer in real time decide what the battery can handle. And therefore, when conditions are optimal, it'll let it go all the way up to 80 amps, which is 26 kilowatts, and adjusting accordingly based on, you know, how warm the battery's gotten and where it's at in the ambient air, and decides the rest. But it's a liquid cool system for the motor, the inverter, and the AC charger. So all three are liquid cooled. And then the battery is all air cooled. The battery design, and there's a number of videos online and photos, is a more opened up design that has more surface area, so that it has improved cooling while riding. It's common when you charge to 100 to get battery to go yellow because it got so warm, but not once while riding did it ever not go back to green before we got to the next charge. And that was going on the highway pretty fast. And that's something we never experienced with the older models. They'll hang on to their yellow for a lot longer. So the battery cooling seems to be a lot better. So on the Zero, you can hear the fans going while it's AC charging. So that's common. On the Rebel, you will hear the fan too going off when you're AC charging because it has to cool the charger. However, the Experia, there is no fan. Instead, the AC charger is hooked into the liquid cooling system. So when you plug it into AC charge, you won't hear anything unless you listen very closely, and you will hear the liquid cooling pump and the liquid moving to the radiator. So it does it all more passively and without any issues. I mean, it's able to charge the bike completely.
Sabrina let me hop on her Experia to head out with Rick on a ride through some quiet back inland Volusia County roads. I gotta say, Energica has come a long way in a short period of time. The last Energica I rode was an Eva back in 2019, before the Eva Rebel with the larger 21.5 kilowatt-hour battery and lighter design came out. Energica's last generation was loud, top-heavy, and did not inspire the level of confidence in corners as compared to the nimbleness of my Zero SRF. But the Experia is dialed in just right. It's super plush, and the balance felt superb. Refined pretty much sums it up, including the sound. All Energicas are louder than Zeros, but that's by design, and the sounds coming from the Experia are oh so sweet. The old Eva felt like it was trying too hard. I'm not going to spend time on the Experia specs that many of you have probably already memorized, but suffice it to say, it has more than enough torque for its mission, along with the Brembo brakes, suspension, and Bosch cornering ABS to back it up. For those of you that do want specs, you'll find them in the Experia post on the evrider.tv website. As Rick already alluded to, the real stars here are the battery and the DC CCS fast charging. Combined, they make for the most range and time-efficient EV touring motorcycle currently available. The Experia's two closest competitors are the Zero SRS, which can be outfitted as a sports tourer, and the DSRX, which is an all-out adventure bike, also available with touring luggage. In terms of size and styling, the DSRX is closest to an Experia, although I'd argue the SRS is the better comparison, since its mission is more geared toward touring with more highway range than the DSRX. The Experia comfortably splits it down the middle. It's not advertised as an off-road adventure bike, but it's just a matter of time before somebody swaps wheels and tires to take it off-road. But here's the thing. If you want to do long-distance touring, the Experia is really the only EV motorcycle out there right now that fits the bill. Rick is getting 120 miles or so per charge at interstate highway speeds. Other EV motorcyclists, including me, are doing long distances on our Zeros and live wires, and some are doing cross-country rides. But due to their smaller batteries and slower charging, the time travel difference is staggering. Zeros with the optional rapid charger have a peak charging rate that's just half the Experias. And since Zero doesn't currently support CCS, riders are automatically excluded from being able to use thousands of additional charging locations that Experias have access to. The Zero's battery is also significantly smaller at 17.3 kilowatt hours versus the Experia's 22.5 kilowatt hour battery pack. Now, you can add a second smaller battery to a Zero to get closer to the Experia's range. But then you'll have to limit yourself to a charging setup that maxes out at just 6.6 kilowatts, as opposed to the 26 kilowatt peak that Rick has seen. If you add Zero's optional rapid charger, you're looking at $26,995 before adding luggage, and that's at the time of this video's posting. The Experia without luggage bases at $23,750. And in the case of the Zero, the rapid charger is a dealer-installed accessory, meaning the price Zero is quoting doesn't include labor. Zero does come with a stronger 5-year battery warranty as opposed to the 3 years on the Energica, although Experia buyers can purchase an optional 5-year warranty. Some of you might be asking, wait a minute, what about Harley's Livewire 1 EV? Well, since the Livewire doesn't offer hard luggage or a touring windscreen, it's not really competing in the same space, especially given its smaller 15.5 kilowatt hour battery. Energica has done a wonderful job getting the weight down. The Experia checks in at 573 pounds. While that's a bit heavier than the Zeros, it's worth it for the extra range and charging speed. And by touring standards, that weight's not bad. By way of comparison, my Kawasaki Vulcan 900 Classic LT, which is what I use for longer trips, tips the scales at over 650 pounds, but it doesn't have nearly the performance or handling chops of the Experia, or for that matter, the SRF. A better comparison might be Yamaha's FJR 1300. It weighs in at 537 pounds. In terms of criticism, where the Experia does fall short is its level 2 charging. When using a Tesla destination charger or J-plug, it's limited to just 3.3 kilowatts of charge per hour. As I rode back home, I couldn't help but think of the biggest difference between my SRF and the Experia. I spent roughly an hour and 15 minutes charging 2 stops on the return trip home, doing a total of 242 miles for the day. Had I owned the Experia, riding the same speed in the same roads, I would have likely made it home without a single stop. It's amazing how fast EV motorcycles are advancing. Now, Zero, it's your turn. Let's see you one-up the Experia. If you've enjoyed this episode of EV Rider, please give it a like and subscribe to my YouTube channel so I can bring you more EV motorcycling adventures.